بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. Dear brothers and sisters, the time of Eid is upon us again, a day of celebration for the Muhammadan community. The word community in Arabic is ummah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَإِنَّ هَذِهِ أُمَّتُكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَأَنَا رَبُّكُمْ فَاتَّقُونَ. This ummah of yours is one ummah, and I am your Lord, so have taqwa of me. So the unity of the final community is immortalized in the Quran and can never be challenged. Wherever Muslims are in the east or the west, from Morocco to India to Uganda to Europe to America, we will always be one community. This allegiance of Islam takes precedence over all other allegiances before nation or tribe or family. The enemies of Islam have been instigating us to fight amongst ourselves for centuries now, so we weaken ourselves and fall prey to their nefarious plans. The old colonial strategy of divide and conquer, so familiar to us, yet we keep falling into the same trap and playing the same game. Today it is the Shia that they want us to fight, our Muslim brothers, the Shia. And yes, I say that deliberately, our brothers, the Shia. The fact that some of us find this difficult to swallow demonstrates how the plotting of the enemies of Islam has infiltrated us so effectively. It is not me but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who said in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. The believers, the Muslims, are nothing but brothers. And the Prophet ﷺ who stated in the hadith, which is Sahih, Al-Muslim Akhul Muslim. The Muslim is a brother of another Muslim. And the Shia have not been declared as non-Muslims by the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah in our long history. They are a deviant sect, but nevertheless our scholars did not say that they are out of the fold of Islam. Therefore, by the prophetic definition, they are our brothers in the faith. One day, when one of the deviant Khawarij sect stood up in front of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu when he was giving his khutbah, and this man started shouting abuse and saying things against Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu. The Muslims who were with Sayyidina Ali were about to capture the man and have him killed, but Sayyidina Ali told him to release this man and said, هُمْ إِخْوَانُنَا بَغَوْا عَلَيْنَا. They are our brothers who have rebelled against us. Look at the wisdom of Sayyidina Ali. These Khawarij are the same ones who fought against him and killed many Muslims, and eventually actually assassinated Sayyidina Ali himself radiallahu anhu. But he was still able to see that they were Muslims, although no doubt they had a distorted understanding of Islam. Today, the Ikhwan al-Muslimin are fighting against the Shia. The Salafis are fighting the Sufis. The Deobandis and Brelvis cannot stand the sight of one another. The list goes on and on. How easy it has become for our enemies to manipulate us. How easy it must be for them to send infiltrators amongst us, posing as scholars or religious leaders and leading our youth astray. This is why we need more of our sincere young brothers and sisters to go out and study authentic Islam, the traditional understanding of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which has been preserved in thousands of books, written over 1,000 years when Islam was a dominant superpower in the world, and preserved until today in the hearts of living teachers around the world. Today I would like to address my brothers and sisters who restrict their Islam to just the Eid prayers or just the Friday prayers, and do not practice any of the remaining religious obligations. I would like to say to you that it is for Allah to dictate to us what our obligations are, not for us to dictate to Allah what our obligations should be. Allah is the one who created you from non-existence. He gave you life. He gave you a brain, a heart, intelligence. He gave you your feelings, your emotions, your form, your shape, your physical body. He gave you your ears, eyes, senses of smell, taste and touch. He has covered you and showered you with all of His bounties. The Quran says if you were to count the favors of God, you will never be able to enumerate them. How many of us would give up our eyes in exchange for £1 million or 100 million? No one but a fool. We do not think about the value of such things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us for free. Yet how ungrateful we are when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to pray 5 times a day, but we say we cannot do this. He commanded us to fast, but it is too difficult for us. We want to dictate what our religion should be as if we know better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. To such brothers and sisters, I would say it is time to come back into the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right now. Do not leave it until tomorrow, because that is Shaitan's game with you. Beware of his tricks, for he is our enemy, the enemy of mankind. He will tell you that you will start practicing when you retire, but by then it will be too late for you. As people get older, they become rigid in their thinking and habits, and that is Shaitan's game with you. You will not be able to change your lifelong habits when you get older, and by then it's too late. You are already on a slippery slope into the hellfire. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save you all and myself from the tricks of Shaitan and forgive us all our sins. When you neglect your religious duties, your iman becomes very weak. Because iman grows stronger through acts of obedience and grows weaker through acts of disobedience. This is an unavoidable fact. When your iman becomes weak, you are like the dry twig in the ground. When the strong wind comes, you will break. You will not be able to face the tribulation that must come to all of us in this life. Because that is the very purpose of this life, to be tested in good times and bad times. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the tribulations easy for us. You will break like a dry twig, whereas the true believer with firm iman is like the green plant. When the wind blows hard, he may bend, but he will always come back up. He will always bounce back, because he knows that all tribulations are ultimately from his beloved Lord. And in the end, his reward will be Jannah if he is patient. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all firm and patient in the face of tribulations, and make the tribulations easy for us. To those of my brothers and sisters here today who perform their daily prayers and private acts of worship, but believe that Islam should be confined to their homes, I would like to say that whenever a guided community gives up the struggle to establish social justice, they are doomed. The Quran says, إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. If you do not do this, i.e. struggle to establish the religion of God, there will be tribulation in the earth and a huge corruption. And this is what we're seeing today around the world, the spreading of this huge corruption, because we have neglected this obligation as the Muslim Ummah. The earliest surahs of the Quran revealed in Mecca, which were setting out the absolute core values of the new teaching, emphasized again and again the responsibility to social justice, of feeding the poor, taking care of orphans, and protecting the baby girls. These are the core teachings of Islam. The Quran says, have you not seen the one who denies the deen? فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُ الْيَتِيمَ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. That is the one who neglects the orphan and does not strive hard to feed the poor. The Quran rejected the old social order where the rich and powerful oppressed the poor and weak. Islam demanded justice and protection of blood, honor and property for all people. In the age of the New World Order, many hundreds of millions of citizens of the global village suffer under the injustices and tyranny of a political and economic oppression. It is up to us Muslims as carriers of mankind's guidance to strive to establish the justice of Islam. This is a binding obligation not an option. We must realize that those suffering from the oppression of this world order are not only Muslims but also the majority of ordinary poor people of all nations. For many of us who live in the wealthy Western capitals of the world, this suffering seems far away. Many of us have come here today driving in our luxury cars, our Mercedes and Lexuses. The love of this lower world has overwhelmed us, and we have become those who run after it, and it destroys them as it destroyed those before them, as the Prophet ﷺ warned many years ago. He said that this was what he feared most for his ummah, that they would lust after worldly pleasures. And he also said that this very disease would be the cause for their weakness at the end of time, when other nations would come against them and devour them, just as people invite each other to a feast. As he said in the famous hadith, when asked what would be the cause of the weakness of Muslims in those days, he replied, Hubbu dunya wa karahiyatul maut, love of this world and dislike of death. To those brothers and sisters here today who claim that they follow the Quran and Sunnah directly without the need for anyone's interpretation, I would like to say, beware of making a mockery of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To give a hukm directly from the revelation, you must be a qualified scholar. This fact was recognized by all our great Sunni scholars for over 1,000 years of Islamic history. And I would say to you, brothers and sisters, have some respect for the great legal schools of Sunni Islam, the Hanafi, Shafi'i, Maliki and Hanbali schools of law that developed over the many centuries when Muslims were at their strongest. Do not forget that the great Muslim caliphates, empires and kingdoms of history, such as the Abbasid, Mughal and Ottoman, all used these four legal schools to run the political, economic and social affairs. The greatest minds and intellects of the Muslim world contributed to the development of these madhabs. Abandoning this awesome heritage is a dangerous move, which opens the Sharia to abuse by unqualified, half-baked pseudo-scholars, each one bringing his own madhab and creating chaos in the Islamic law. To those young brothers and sisters here today who are full of enthusiasm for jihad and full of misery when they see the suffering of Muslims around the world, I would like to say, we need Muslims like you who are concerned about ending oppression and injustice and are full of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and willing to lay down your lives in a moment if it was required, because you long for the next life and the meeting with your Lord. However, I would strongly caution you that you should not be used by those infiltrators, agents of the enemies of Islam. You need to gain knowledge of your deen first. You should know that jihad is a sacred duty, and like any duty it has rules and regulations of how it is to be carried out. Just as before you pray, you need to learn the rules of purification and prayer. Before you embark on the struggle for the deen, you need to study and understand. We need to understand the world we live in. We need to identify the enemy clearly and then develop our strategy intelligently and with wisdom and with a deep understanding of the founding principles of our religion. This requires study. That is why establishing our own educational institutions is one of our primary concerns at this time. Without knowledge and study, we cannot face any enemy, and we will continue to be mere pawns, as I am afraid most of the mujahideen in the second half of the 20th century and beginning of the 21st have been, mere pawns in the hands of the powerful players on the world stage. As Sheikh Saeed Ramadan al-Bouti, Hafidhahullah, one of the leading scholars in Damascus, has pointed out, jihad today is on three levels: the intellectual, the cultural and the physical. Today we are living in a world in which its leaders are proclaiming the emergence of a new world order, a new global political and economic order, under which all nations must submit. We must understand that today we do not face a particular nation, but face this self-proclaimed global order, which serves the interests of the world's ultra-rich elite. This world order is a satanic world order, as it is based on a rejection of all religious teachings. In the absence of religious constraints, the human being is left to nothing but his own reason, desires and passions, and the whisperings of the devil. I do not claim to have all the answers, but I know some things that I have learned through my study of Islam and through sitting by the will of Allah with some real scholars, not half-baked preachers. Firstly, we should be absolutely clear that we are living in this country under a covenant of security, and the Sharia firmly prohibits us from carrying out any type of violence or harm towards the people of this country, who have allowed us to live here with our families in safety. Any type of breaching of this trust would be considered a major sin and an act of treachery which is forbidden by the Prophet ﷺ. We are not saying this because we are in this country and we are scared. This is our Sharia. We need to understand this. Secondly, you cannot fight a jihad against an enemy that can wipe out a whole city with a single bomb, unless you have a similar weapon. If you have an enemy that can wipe out your entire population if it chose to, and don't think they wouldn't do it if they ever needed to, they've used these weapons before. Go and ask the Japanese. Go and ask the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Sharia dictates that jihad must not be carried out if there is a danger that all Muslims will perish. These are rules of engagement, the ahkam, that can be found in any book of Islamic law. I am not talking about any particular region right now. It is not my business to talk about specific places where fighting is taking place. It is the job of the Amir in that place to make these decisions. But I am talking about general principles, general rules of engagement. Sometimes we must lay down the sword. Islam does not forbid this, Islam demands this. And do not blame the leaders and governments of our countries. We are all in the same boat. Many of us have become armchair critics, endlessly sitting and having a go at the leaders of Muslim countries. But the blame is not just on our leaders. We are all to blame. Our leaders are nothing but a reflection of ourselves. May Allah guide us all. You get rid of one Saddam Hussein and 1,000 Saddams step up to take his place. Where are they coming from? They are not coming from a vacuum. We as Muslims in Britain, as the largest minority group in this country, must think carefully and intelligently about what our role is here. In this country, we need to develop a Muslim intelligentsia, genuine Muslim scholars who are deeply versed in the traditional Sunni teaching but have an intimate understanding of the modern world, who will be able to provide leadership for our community. We have to organize ourselves to further our interests at local and national levels. Islam has given us a powerful social institution of the Friday prayer, in which the community gathers on a regular basis. The institution of the Friday prayer affords the Muslim community with the potential, with some simple organization and foresight, to become a powerful lobby to further our common interests at home and abroad. No other community can boast of well over 500,000 of its members coming together on a weekly basis and listening to their religious leaders on the pulpits. We have to activate the Friday prayer, the Friday gatherings, and utilize them as they were meant to be utilized to address the affairs of the community. These are just some hints and ideas, and hints are sufficient for people of understanding. As for the dim-witted, no amount of talking will help. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to learn this deen and understand it. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.